Casey, I want to make this clear. The greatest nation in the world should have nothing to fear from children fleeing violence, and even more importantly, children fleeing violence ought to have nothing to fear from the greatest country in the world.
All right, that's Mayor Pete Buttigieg there in South Bend, Indiana, making it official, running for the White House. So who exactly is this guy, and how did he really pop up out of nowhere onto the national scene? Well, to help us figure all of this out is a good friend of this radio program from South Bend, Indiana, Casey Hendrickson. He is the talk radio host there, the most popular, I think the number one talk radio host in the region, 95.3 WMNC. Casey, how's it going today?
It's going good, man. It's good to talk to you again.
Likewise. You know, we ran into each other over the weekend there in Fort Wayne at the big Talk Tank event, and I told my producer, we got to get Casey on the program.
I appreciate the pitch that you were doing to Tommy Lahren, by the way, because Tommy and I have never met. Buck and I have shut down a couple of restaurants late at night before, but Tommy and I had never met, and I just introduced myself. I shook hands, and Todd comes over, and he's like, this guy's a blowtorch in South Bend. I appreciated that. Thank you very much.
I did say that, didn't I? Glad to make that connection there. So, yes, Tommy Lahren, ladies and gentlemen, was with us along with Buck Sexton. It was a great night. Casey, they should have had you up on the stage.
You know, they did last year because it was their first year doing the event. And then this year, you know, hey, sometimes you got to let the kids do it on their own, Todd. And they did a fantastic job. It was really fun. You know, we brought some listeners up in a stretch limo, and it was a blast. You guys did great.
By the way, before we get into the mayor here, had dinner with two of your listeners.
Yes.
They were in a contest to have dinner with us, and we were the folks over at the Ruth's Chris in Fort Wayne. Unbelievably kind. It was a great meal, and really enjoyed talking. It was Brian and Angie who I got to hang out with.
Yep, that's correct. And Brian's in local government. Angie works for local government. So, you know, not only did you get two really good people, but you also got an insight into some of Michiana's politics as well.
Yeah, and let's talk about that because the mayor, it just seems to me that he sort of popped up out of nowhere. What's going on with this guy?
You know what's funny? When I interviewed him when he was first running for mayor, right after I got to South Bend, I said, this guy's running for Senate. Mayor is a stepping stone for him. Well, that path has been blocked. So he really doesn't have an option to run for Senate in Indiana right now. So the next best thing is to try and run for president, because even if he doesn't get it, you know, he obviously raises his notoriety, if you will, within the party. He's got some really big power brokers in the Democratic Party from Chicago that have been behind him for a long time. So he's got the ability to raise money. As you can tell, he speaks softly. He comes off as very kind. Even his political rivals say he's a nice guy. But if you look at every radical, far-left policy position and talking point of the Democratic Party and the Ocasio-Cortez wing of that party, he is lockstep in with them. He just says it in a nice, monotone way. But it's exactly the same stuff. You know, when he ran for DNC chair, Todd, he put out this campaign ad, and he said that, you know, basically the Democratic Party is irrelevant in American politics today, and we've got to find a new direction. And so here's some of the new things that we can do. Universal health care, get rid of the Electoral College, guns are bad. It's the same old talking points that we've been hearing for decades.
You know, early on, Casey, when we first started hearing about this guy, he was coming under attack from the leftists of the party, saying, "Well, the guy's white. We can't have a white candidate."
Yeah.
Then you have people saying that he was too gay, and I still don't understand what that was all about. And I, you know, on this radio program, I defended the guy. I'm like, look, you know, his policies are horrible. But he served our country honorably, and we should respect that. And why does it matter what color he is or what his sexual preferences are? I just never have understood that. But then he turns around, and I think he showed his true colors when he went after Vice President Pence and also the evangelical supporters of President Trump. That, to me, says a lot about this guy's character.
Well, and here's the thing that people have to understand something. First of all this turnaround Cinderella story about the city of South Bend under his tutelage is not true. Okay, everybody in the Washington Post and CNN and Politico who've been pushing that narrative, these are people who don't know anything about the city. We're in an area called Michiana, and the only reason that this is important is because there's a bunch of cities in close proximity to one another, and we all kind of consider ourselves citizens of the region, if you will, not just South Bend. And South Bend is universally considered to be the worst run of all of those cities. You know, we can talk about crime. We can talk about how the South Bend School Corporation is one of only 2 school systems here that people actively flee and get their kids out of, how violent crime has gone up over 4 points since he has become mayor. We can go through a lot of that stuff, which, of course, the media leaves out. But I think you're hit on a point there. How sad is it that one of the major political parties of the United States is really running on you are not an identity enough, rather than looking at your policies, being able to pick apart the things that you've done. And it's really a sad commentary and everything. And some of the things that Pete Buttigieg has been given success for in downtown South Bend only happened because of Governor Mike Pence with the Regional Cities Investment Project. Now, to Pete Buttigieg's credit, he went out and found matching funds in order to get those funds. But when you go and you talk to some of these businesses and corporations who did decide to invest, and there's been some, but there hasn't been all that much. Most people still stay outside of city limits. They said we would have invested whether or not he had done this Smart Streets project or not, but he's trying to take credit for it. And that all stemmed from Vice President Mike Pence when he was governor of Indiana. And to have Pete Buttigieg turn around and just slam him, it's like, dude, you're taking credit for a lot of the stuff that wouldn't have happened without him.
Yeah, I'm curious about the politics there in South Bend. You've got the university there, of course.
Yeah.
How does that stack compared to the outlying communities? A pretty liberal place.
Yeah, South Bend is the bluest of the blue in this area. Again, not a very large population, about 100,000 people. The population is stagnant. I know some of these articles have said, oh, the population is roaring back. No, it isn't. It's like 0.13% population increase over the past couple of years when you adjust for the birth rate. It's stagnant. Nobody moves to South Bend, and most people will live outside of the city limits and then commute in if they have to work there. But really, Mishawaka is a thriving city. Elkhart's a thriving city. You know, so you've got all of these surrounding cities that just are better run. They're not facing the budget shortfalls that South Bend is facing next year. Nobody talks about that either. It's a very, very blue area, though. The last Republican in South Bend, I have to chuckle a little bit, Todd, when I hear the whole, it was very risky for him to come out and tell everybody he was gay. First of all, we all knew he was gay, Todd, and nobody cared. So he came out with his reelection as if it were some kind of a political risk. There hasn't been a Republican in the mayor's office in South Bend since 1972. So this is not exactly a risky place to go ahead and come out. But I will say that the black community in South Bend, especially in the low-income parts, they are very concerned about a lot of his policies causing gentrification and some of the things that he has done with the police tape scandal and things of that nature, which the media is only just now picking up on, in spite of me hammering it for months. And now they're finally starting to address these things.
Yeah, real quick on that, because, and Casey, we want to have you back on the show to break down some of the stuff about that we're learning about Buttigieg. But the dinner guest, Brian there, and Angie, they were both talking about this police video scandal.
Yeah.
What's the bottom line there? What's going on?
So basically, South Bend had the first black police chief in history, Chief Boykins, and the new incoming mayor, Pete Buttigieg, falsely accused him of being a violating federal law with illegally wiretapping police officers. So some of the phone lines in the police department were recorded. As everybody knows, it's in the manual, they were recorded and that sort of thing. These particular officers say they didn't know those lines were recorded, and they feel like their privacy has been violated. Here's the issue with that. So Pete Buttigieg falsely accuses the former police chief of committing federal wiretap fraud. He fires him. The police chief then rescinds his resignation after he hears a press conference in which Pete Buttigieg kind of slandered him. We ended up finding out that the chief didn't do anything illegal. But on these tapes, supposedly, and I want to make crystal clear, Todd, nobody knows what's on these tapes. We just have witnesses who have heard them, who have said what's on them, okay? We've never heard them. There appears to be officers saying some very racist and some say illegal things on these tapes. And Pete Buttigieg has refused to release these tapes. And there's been a huge legal battle about it. He said it was illegal to release those tapes. Well, a federal judge said that he could release at least some of them, and he has still maintained the secrecy of these tapes and has not released them. So it's been a battle with the city council. It's been a battle with the officers that are on the tapes. But many of those officers, Todd, have now gone on to run for higher office. Well, if the things on the tapes are true, the public needs to know that these people who are running for higher office said these things on this tape. So when the mayor keeps this secret, he could potentially be keeping very bad people good information about them away from the public and getting them into higher office.
And Casey, that would lead to the question: why would the mayor be covering up for these individuals?
Right, and there's some rumors, but it's all hearsay, so there's no reason for me to repeat it because I don't know if any of it's true. We did have one person come out and say what she heard on the tape. She used to work for the department. She's the one that found the tapes. She's made some allegations, but without hearing the tapes, I have no way of confirming what she said. But if nothing else, it gives the public the impression of a cover-up because the mayor, who is allowed to release a number of these tapes under a court order, has chosen not to. And that's what's creating some concern here. So I'm glad that they're finally picking up on this story. And Todd, I'm just going to say this now. Don't be surprised if you hear some very interesting things about his military service in the near future.
Is that right?
Yes.
All right. Okay. We don't want to, and again, I hear where you're going with that. So let's see where that goes. But Casey, I know we want to have you back on in the coming days as we sort of do a deep dive into this guy. Real quick, though, what do you think? I mean, when you look, the guy certainly has a compelling message.
Yeah.
And I think when you compare him to Bernie Sanders, certainly attractive to millennials and younger Democrats. What do you think the guy's chances are? Should we take him seriously?
I think his biggest issue is going to be getting through this primary. Now, I've said before, if I were a Democratic strategist and you were to give me the pick of the litter right now, what are we at, 19 or something? I would take him. I would take Pete Buttigieg because I can do more with him. And here's the thing. They've created a caricature, Todd, that the big orange man is crass and evil and mean. Well, if you look at the Democratic ticket right now, who's the exact opposite of that? Well, that's Pete Buttigieg. Soft-spoken. Like I said, even people who disagree with him on everything walk away from the conversation going, he's a nice guy. And so if I were to do that, I could work with the guy. Yes, I could use his social issues and even his sexuality, his military service, and things like that. The real question about him is he's never been in a dogfight, Todd. We don't know if he can fight. He's avoided fighting his entire time in the mayor's office. Shortly after he was elected, he stopped doing my show. So
and Casey, and look, they demonstrated this last week when I wrote about the mayor and his hypocrisy. They will weaponize his sexuality.
Oh yeah,
and anybody who disagrees with any policy, anti-gay.
Yeah, that will happen. And he was pigeonholed for a while there as I'm the gay guy from Indiana, Trump bad or Pence bad. And I commented on that. They've shifted that strategy. I know that they listen to the program because every time I say something, they kind of shift something, and there's a story that kind of comes out. But at the same time, the real test is going to be when somebody actually goes after him, and will he be able to defend himself, and will he be able to get into the trenches? Because just speaking, like I said, he does a very good job of delivering a message. He's very articulate. There's no doubt about that. And again, he is a nice guy. I've been in many public settings with this guy, and I would have no issues having a beer with him and then telling him that everything he thinks is wrong. But if he actually gets to the point where he's on a debate stage and somebody's yelling at him and somebody's coming at him with hard numbers and things like that, can he actually defend, deflect, and recover? That's the real question on him right now. Where is, how tough is his heart when he's in a dogfight?
All right, Casey, I got to leave it there. By the way, where can folks go to get more information about you?
You can follow me at Casey the Host. That's Casey on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, on Twitch, and my website is theburningtruth.us.
By the way, love the sweatshirts. You've got like a whole brand.
Yeah, man. I've got a whole branding with the logo and everything else. Yeah, people love those sweatshirts and those shirts. We got some hats coming out, some coffee mugs. People dig it.
It's good stuff. Yeah, Angie was wearing it.
She was.
The winner was wearing it last night at the Ruth's Chris.
Yeah, she was. Next time I'll have a whole bus full of people, and we'll have the sweatshirts and things like that for you.
They didn't even bring you to the dinner, Casey. What's up with that?
You know what? It's one of those things. Every time you guys come into town, I get to have dinner with you. This is the first time I haven't been able to, and it was a little weird, I'll be honest with you. But it was fun. We got a stretch limo, and I got to take everybody back, and we had a blast.
I heard you guys had a great time, and we were saying really nice things about you to your boss there. So
I appreciate
KC,
it.
As they call it.
Trust me, I need the kind words.
Casey Hendrickson, ladies and gentlemen, from South Bend, Indiana, our great radio station there. Thanks, Casey.
Thank you so much, Todd.
Good guy.